Few intellectuals that gathered in New York faced one struggle, a second criticism, and a third persistence and focusing. How do you become an American Jew? Replacing the Robert Cohen figures in the book with bangers of hangers on, excessive emotional, a masochistic Jew who becomes the foil for the lean, masculine style that Hemingway was crafting. Remember the opening paragraph in The Dangling Man of Saul Bellow? A little book that everybody should have somewhere on a shelf, The Dangling Man. The very first paragraph, it's a pleasure of acknowledge the generous support of everyone that's given me. Cynthia Ozick writes in the introduction, though a generation apart and so much revolution, a century that brought so much destruction, here comes Bellow, pristine, Yiddish trained, Talmudic scholar, French speaking from Canada, and he comes to Chicago and he teaches classics, Greek and Latin classic. When it came to concealing his troubles, Tommy Wilhelm was not less capable than the next fellow. So at least he thought there was a certain amount of evidence to back him up. He had once been an actor. No, not quite. An extra. And he knew what acting should be. Also, he was smoking a cigar. And when a man is smoking a cigar, wearing a hat, he has an advantage. It's harder to find out how he feels. He came from the 23rd floor down to the lobby on the mezzanine to collect his mail before breakfast. And he believed and he hoped that if he looked the same and if he can pass well, doing all right, it was a matter of sheer hope because there was not much that he could do in this present effort. So how you dressed and how you wore your hat and how you smoked your cigar, The Dangling Man, acting, humor, boisterous, tries to make his voice heard. But obviously, this is an effort that came with the company of another great friend of his, and of course, we know of Bernard Malamud. And Bernard Malamud's first opus was a skinny little book, a tiny little book called The Fixer. The idea of the American Jewish-speaking English was to fix in America morality, to fix in America the roaring 20s, to fix in America what looked to them like the cabaret of Berlin in 1920. Here they were in their youth, 49, 50, they got together as New York intellectuals. They knew their Latin, they knew their Greek, they knew their classics, they knew their Shakespeare. But what do? Turning the tables on tough guys. They create Joseph, of course, from Kafka's Joseph, promises to talk openly about his difficulty. And if I had as many mouths as Shiva had arms and kept them going all the time, I still could not do myself justice. Just as Isaac Babel had felt that in Odessa, a Jew could release untapped energies of Russian literature, Bellow knew that he had something joyous to add to American literature by talking as demonstratively, as Semitically, as best as he knew. Reinvigorating English in America. Bellow's main characters became Augie Marsh. And when you open Augie Marsh, the first sentence Augie has to say in Malamud's beautiful, beautiful anthology. First sentence, no bars. I'm an American, Chicago born, Chicago. That somber city, and go at things as I've taught myself. Freestyle, that will make the record in my own way. First to knock, first admitted. Sometimes an innocent knock, sometimes not so innocent. But a man's character is his fate, says Heraclitus, and in the end, there isn't any way to disguise the nature of the knocks by acoustical work on the door or gloving the knuckles. There is no way to dress up. There is no way to speak loud. There's no other way but to do it as strong, as powerful as my own parents would teach me. I cared for my mother. She was simple-minded. And what I learned from her was not what she taught, but on the order of object lessons. She didn't have much to teach, poor woman. My brothers and I loved her so much, I speak for them both. For the elder, safe enough. For the younger, Georgie, I have to answer. He was born an idiot. But I have no need to guess, for he had a song he sang as he ran drag-footed with his stiff idiot's trot up and down along the curl-wired fence in the backyard. Georgie, Maji, Oki, Simi, Windy, Machi, V, Envy, I love Mama. It was right about everybody that loved Mama. From the general to the personal to the American, Chicago, I am here. And of course, Bello goes on for the 28 novels that he writes, all the way to Ravelstein at the end. Bello got a Nobel Prize because he brought humanity in all its frailty in the very beautiful American English. They elevated the American English from a boyish character of Ogie Marsh. As Cynthia Ozick phrased it, she said, breaking through all the restraints of language, mixing the lavish with the raffish and of range, the barriers of inhibition kicked down, the freed writer exuberantly claiming authority over human and planetary organisms. Ogie didn't have to grow up. Ogie Marsh could stay boyish, he could stay innocent, and when we come to Sambler's Planet, Bello brings forth to the table the next warpath. And what is at the table is assimilation, alienation, intermarriage, and anti-Semitism. All the A's put together. How do you find acculturation? How do you fight assimilation? How do you fight anti-Semitism? How do you fight ABC? Semler recalls with unnerving satisfaction how he killed a disarmed German soldier in the Polish forests. And then, of course, at the end of the book, Semler, our simple, our Schlemiel, our innocent philosopher, joins the Six-Day War that breaks out in Israel, and he leaves the safety of Manhattan to join younger journalists in Sinai. Of course, Semler is the first Bello hero to visit Israel, but not the last. Bello also did Jerusalem to New York, once to rescue his daughter from an abusive Russian husband, and the other one, of course, the fate of Israel, became his own fate as being a Jew. So you may ask me, yeah, what are these secular Jews that are really not, they gone from yeshiva, they don't belong to Leipzig, they are mitnagdim, their parents were mitnagdim, and of course they want to shape an American Jewish writer, they want to shape Jews to become Jews, they don't want to be defined by Holocaust century. Considering that Bello might have drawn on all his Yiddish, his language he speaks masterfully is English, he wants to create an Yiddish-speaking survivor, noteworthy of Arthur Semler, noteworthy that speaks English as an intellectual. So he takes Semler to England. I remember coming to the Bronx and my English teacher, Mrs. Gordon, says to me, oh, you have to fix your English. Your diction is not the Bronx. Well, my teachers were mandated. The English mandate in 1942, 45, 48 taught me how to say half, bother, gather, rather. When you come to the Bronx, it just didn't fit. Not the accent, not the resonance. I kept the Israeli accent. I let the boat go 63 years ago. Well, he didn't want to be wandering famous quip that everyone in New York and Manhattan started talking about. Oh, Philip Roth, Bernard Malamud, and Bello, Hart, Schaffner, and Marx. In our times, the three best tailors. My joke is not broad enough to cover the contempt I feel for these opportunist wise guys and career types who imposed such labels and trade upon them in a century so disastrous to the Jews as 1920 to 2020, I want to share with you the fight, the struggle, the achievement of setting America to understand, to appreciate, not to know much about the American Jew in literature. And here, I didn't go to the public library to read Talmud, and there I could feel where Bellow was sitting with the poems of Sherwood Anderson and Theodore Dreiser and Masters and Vachel Lindsay. And then I found out the 2,000 letters that Bellow didn't have to publish, but nobody read Trilling, nobody read Dreiser, nobody read Mary MacArthur, nobody read Grace Bailey. They all wrote to Bellow, and today nobody would remember any of them who shaped the English American Jew, but they would remember Bellow because he got the Nobel Prize, and his stories and his understanding, his guidance between Henry Worth, Call It Sleep, in 1934. The book slept for 30 years. In 1964, Henry Worth got the Pulitzer Prize. As an immigrant child in Harlem, with a mother that could not get away from V Had a Good Time. You know, my parents went to English school to become citizens. They went to Taft High School because we lived in the Bronx. The Bronx High School didn't have a night class, but Taft did on the concourse. And for 4 years, with a composition notebook, they took down vocabulary. They learned sentences. They raised their hand and made sentences for the professor. And one night my father came, Tatale started crying. Ich bin stupid, ich kenn nicht, verwusst, Tatale, what's the matter? Well, the professor said I was wrong. What did you do? He wrote down 10 vocabulary words. The first one was E-N-V-Y. And my father immediately raised his hand. And the professor said, yes, Mr. Wachter. And he said, last night, my wife and I, we went to the movies. And we had ice cream. And we had a good time. And we went home. And we, professor says, no. E-N-V-Y is not, and we had a good time. And we had ice cream. It's a whole other word. It's a whole other concept. He was destroyed. What you hear, what you see from a man who spoke 7 languages, with a woman who was the librarian in the ghetto, was librarian in Lodz, was a librarian in Tel Aviv, 7 languages, knew Tolstoy in Yiddish, and of course, to them, Shakespeare was only in Yiddish. And what was the first page of Shakespeare? Verbessert, in vergrößert, Shakespeare in Yiddish. So zu sein und nicht zu sein is much better than to say to be or not to be. But here in America, it had to be flipped over. And zu sein und nicht zu sein became a traducing of Jewish sources. So Cynthia was the first American Jewish writer, of course, with Philip Worth, with Henry Worth, with Bellow and Malamud, who's believed so naturally, that America fits the Jew perfectly natural. And he wrote The Natural, who plays baseball. And he wrote The Assassin. And he wrote about the Jew who gave his keys to the store with his neighbor, the black man, knowing that America is a place of self-built. And in a romantic way, the business gets burned down. And all the goodness that they trusted in the community did not pan out. And in The Assistant, the pathos of an immigrant trusting in everything America had, its constitution, its freedom to speak, its ability to climb through the same values they had in Europe, through education, through honesty, truth, morality. Here, Jewish meant following the commandments in your house, God's Sabbath and the laws, but the freedom of fiction, the freedom of the imagination, the freedom of character, the freedom of falling, the freedom of succeeding. by the time we get to Philip Roth and American Pastoral, we understand that Seymour, a great American novel, Seymour Levuv came to America to build a huge empire of kid gloves. Gloves made perfectly fit. The most expensive would be Altman and Bloomingdale's. The metaphor is so clear. Seymour believed that America fits the Jew like a perfect kid glove with the best of leather. But of course, Seymour had a daughter who went to San Francisco to burn down a post office. And we know the story of Patricia Hurt, and we know that Swede, the great son that built the biggest house in New Jersey overlooking the valleys, when he married his New Jersey queen, beauty queen, and his household fell apart, we understand where Philip Roth said, goodbye, Columbus. Let the boat go. We stay. We're not immigrants. We are American Jews who take the responsibility and the pride and the confidence to be Dina de Malchuta Dina. The law of the land is our law. We are loyal citizens. We are committed human beings. And that's where Cynthia comes in to negotiate no man's land between the life before. That was good for Bashevis Singer. That was good for Agnon. That was wonderful for Appelfeld. They built a bridge from Warsaw to New York. But when it came to New York, it was Malamud and all the others I mentioned. It takes too long. It's a semester to teach and thousands of writing papers to reduce it all to a one sentence and give those intellectuals the ability, the freedom, the acceptance to write. They were loved by everyone but the Jewish community. They were loved in Italy for all the prizes. They were loved in England and Japan. They're translated in 42 different languages. Bella wrote 30 books, Philip wrote more. Cynthia Ozick, 8 volumes last year of criticism. They write and they write. And the counterlife in American Pastoral, by the time Seymour Levuv and his family and the disintegration, we come to the point that Ludwig Lusen and Hermann Wouk knew about intermarriage and wrote about it, but yet could not describe it as well as a Thanksgiving dinner in American Pastoral's de-religionized holiday. Quote, when everybody gets to eat the same thing, nobody's sneaking off to eat funny stuff, no kugel, no gefilte fish, no bitter herbs, just one colossal turkey. For 250 million people, one colossal turkey feeds all. A moratorium on funny foods and funny ways and religious exclusivity. A moratorium on 3,000-year-old nostalgia of the Jew. A moratorium on Christ and the cross and the crucifixion of the Christians. When everyone in New Jersey and elsewhere can be more passive about their irrationalities than they are the rest of the year. A moratorium on all the grievances and resentments for everyone in America who is suspicious of everyone else. It is the American Pastoral par excellence, and it lasts just 24 hours. You get the picture. The ability to be with, like, distinctive, exclusive, together in the American dream. And of course, Philip Roth achieved his Olympus and became no Nobel Prize, but the most read book in fiction. Not even Shakespeare can beat it on the American campus, as well as Italian, as well as French, everywhere else you go. Why? Because when you love America, and when you are a Jew who loves America, you're able to write the plot against America. You're able to take little Philip and his parents. You're able to go through everything he went through. It's a worthwhile read because there you have the 1930s. There you have anti-Semitism. There you have the whole Elizabeth and Newark community. I know Marsha knows it well. If she's on, I know you know the high school, Marsha, right? And the people around it, and to be able to take little innocent Philip. This is not Gunther Grass little tin drum. This is not the ominous horrible. This is innocence, total loving innocence. And a father who realizes that the demagogue who flies around and the one who goes to Berlin and the one who makes friends is a danger to America. Totalitarianism comes.
What happened?
The power. Don't worry about the hallway.
What happened?
Nobody knows. It's not the power. No. It's
She
Rabbi
froze.
Kansas. No.
No, it froze.
No, I don't think so. You're out of power?
Mira, are you back?
Well, come on mine.
Disappeared.
Come on my computer. Mira's trying to check our computer. Huh?
Now I'm coming back.
What battery?
I don't know what that.
Hi, Charlie.
Yeah, playing hooky like I am, huh?
Something wrong with the computer.
I thought I was on mute.
Well, you were on mute.
Mira expects to be back on in a minute. Our computer is just rebooting. Yes, everybody's here waiting for you. Patiently waiting.
All waiting.
Well, wait.
You come out perfectly on that picture. Look at that. You might as well continue.
Let me see if I could help. Don't go away.
Mira, you back?
On again. I'm here, dear. I'm good. I'm good.
Let me remind everybody to mute yourselves. Go ahead, Mira.
Every once in a while, go like
So now, the plot against America and Malamud and the natural and all were all a part of the language. In comes in her 40s now, Cynthia Ozick, in 1969, a year after Portnoy's complaint, and she wants to do the one thing that they cannot do. She wants to redefine the Jew, the American Jew especially, the one that everybody's now listening to because we stick our neck out. We believe in a constitution. We believe in Malchut Adina. We believe in loyalty. We believe to be the op-ed page. We are Saffron. We're A.B. Rosenthal. We are Brett Stevens. We stick our neck out. We take the chance of being chopped off. But we have to tell the truth. And of course, we are tested on it all the time. But what we're not tested on and what we cannot really do until the literature comes on so strong is to undo the identification that Hitler identifies us. That the only reason we have ambition and loyalty and appreciation for freedom and all is because we are victims. And the victimization is almost a myth with Anne Frank. But there were so many children, over 1 million. How do we demystify? How do we demythologize? You do it with 67 pages, pristine, clear, magnificent, shawl, a talus, a wraparound. You do it with one paragraph on the very, very beginning. As Magda walked with matchstick's legs down on the field, over in a corner a round oak tree, and on top a gate, and behind her the boots. Sometimes Rosa had cannibal dreams about Stella. This is the mother who watched her child walk slowly into the fence as she burned crispy. When you take a paragraph and you take away Nazi and you take away Hitler and you demystify the child on matchstick's legs, so young, so frail, burning to a crisp at the fence, the reader becomes obligated to fill in so much background, history, language, metaphors, symbolism. And this is what the writer did. This is what all of them demanded of their readers. And that's probably one of the reasons most people don't know them. Because I know that when Sally read Foreign Bodies and Harriet read The Heir to a Glimmering Past, they went, "Oh, I need a dictionary next to me." They dictified English to its classical, romantic gravitas of language. When a sentence is worked on and crafted so beautifully, both in Philip, both in Bernard Malamud, both in Isaac Bashevis, still Yiddish, but for Cynthia Ozick, it's Rhoda's cradle. There's a clear white little goat. And you hear, Inter Wesels Wiegele, steht a kleine Ziegele. How Rosa's mother despised those sounds. She thought she would get away from them. She thought she'll never hear them. Roschenkes mit Mandeln, right? Remember that? The Ziegele, the little kid, the little goat, sits and watches the baby while mommy's away selling almonds and raisins. And no more than 36 Jewish pages later, Rosa is in Miami, schlepping her laundry to the laundromat on 47th Street and Collins Avenue. And there she meets Paretsky, who listens to her accent and is so proud. I have an accent too. I'm Paretsky. You know, I'm Lauren Bacall's cousin. Lauren Bacall is a Paretsky, but she chose to change her name. Everything Cynthia chooses is very important. In one line, in one sentence, she builds her Olympus. When Paretsky says to her, just let's have a glaze of latte. We'll just have tea. We'll talk about our past. Because to Cynthia Ozick, her literature is past and present and future all in one sentence. I'm from Warsaw, says Paretsky. You're from Warsaw. We have so much in common. You have an accent. I have an accent. And he goes on when she interrupts and says in one line, my Varsha is not your Varsha. My Warsaw is not your Warsaw. Well, what does the reader do with that? You have to stop and breathe. You have to let all those brains at 85 years old start thinking synopses and remembering and connecting the dots. What is the Warsaw before World War I? Immigration of 1912, 15, and 20 to America have to do with the Paris of Europe in 1932, when all the musicians and all the writers, both from Russia and from Paris, landed in Warsaw and wrote and argued and met in cafes and listened to Peretz and listened to Tolstoy in 7 different languages, in Hungarians, in Munkash, in Czech. That was Warsaw. In one sentence, my Herschel, the one I sleep with, he's the one who reads nonfiction. And he always asks me, Mira, why do you read fiction only? I say, because I need the imagination, the freedom. I need that which delves so deeply into the emotional that I'm a prisoner of the word. I'm a Torah learner of the word. The word is what guides the present and the past and the future. So here reads The Kings of Warsaw. Can I have that book, Herschel? The King of Warsaw? And I understand why the men read so much about war and so much about the Lilo and so much about baseball. That's America. That's beautiful America. That's imaginative America. That's the hero worship of America. Our hero worship is quite a truthful, honest. He is no king of Warsaw, but he's king of Russia. And he was there, and now Rosa, finally on the last page, she also changes, because Paretsky is a kind of cuneiform on the underside of the brain. The drudgery of reminiscence brought fatigue. She felt glazed, lethargic. And Magda, the memory of Magda was only now beginning to fade away. The blue of her dress was now only a speck in Rosa's eyes. Magda did not even stay to claim her own letter, flickered, unfinished like an ember. And all because the shawl became the metaphor for the baby that she carried all the way to Miami. The shawl, the talus, the wraparound, the feel, the holding on to the arm. And here the shawled telephone. The shawled telephone. What do you do with those 3 words? You mean, Cynthia, that you hung the shawl on the telephone that's hanging on the kitchen wall, that nobody ever calls, that speaks all the words of your past and your present and your motherhood and your future, the shawled telephone. 3, comma. The Talmud says you put the comma there, you change the words, right? Little grimy silent God, so long comatose. Now just like Magda, animated at will, ardent with its cry, Rosa led its clamor once or twice, and there she heard the Cuban girl announce, "Oh, madame, announce Mr. Persky. Should he come up or should you come down?" A parody of a real hotel, of, in fact, the Marie Louis on Collins Avenue with its fountains, its golden thrones, its thorned wire, its burning tree. Quote, "He's used to crazy women, so let him come up." She took the shawl off the phone. Magda was not there. Shy, ran from Persky. Magda was away. Persky was coming up. When you finish the shawl, you recognize that somewhere Cynthia Ozick deserves her place. And of course, Bloom called her the genius of the generation. Roth said we couldn't be who we are without her language, her honesty, her imagination, and her demand that art in America is not the internet and not complacent and not make-believe and more than Hollywood. It needs the brunt of truth. It needs the civilizational rather than the commercial. Every book should in a way civilize, change the reader or change the author. That dialogue between reader and author doesn't have to be Jewish, but it cannot not be Jewish after you read a century of American Jewish writers. Their inner core is still their own personality, their background, their values. The Torah is past, present, and future. Everything in the one word, reduce the language, pristine the vocabulary, elevate and gravitas the English to America to make the Jew comfortable in his past and his present and claim his very future. So without reading into my notes, I want at least 18 Jewish minutes of questions and sharing from you, because my selfish reasons to come to you and be so limited in time and space and tell you that if your grandchildren work at Brown, at Duke, at Columbia, and the English professor happens to ask Grandpa, who is some of your favorite American authors? And you say Malamud, and you say Roth, or you say Cynthia Ozick, the grandkid will get an A in English, because that's the syllabus of the American fiction of 1920 to 2020. Everything else that now the immigrant story is writing about is a tremendous takeoff, and it doesn't compare to a Bello Samler or a Bello Herzog. It doesn't compare to the plot against America, to write about Lindbergh or to write about FDR in a way of a family disintegration, a family that stays together and falls apart when America, in fiction, of course, chooses Charles Lindbergh. That's a kind of a warning sign and a kind of a love for America. So please, any question, I want to learn. I want to glean from your experience. I want to glean from your time to read. I know what a copacetic this fiction can be, but it's kind of necessary to pass on. It's kind of necessary for 3 generations from now, and hopefully your 4th generation, that will read Anne Frank, and you say to them, read the Shawl. Read Roth, the Ghost Rider. We don't have to mythologize. We have to be real. Magda could not even speak before she was burned at the fence. That's the child illuminates the story, with no burden and no identification with black boots or Nazi language. You follow me? So please open up your mics. All you have to do is just kind of raise your hand, and I'm sure David will unmute you. And I thank you for your patience, and I wish you good health and good time with all the memories of past. Make them all the future stories, and share, bring it all to the table. We are lucky. Thank you. Yes, Karen. Karen Green, you want to unmute yourself?
There we
Okay.
go.
Yes, dear.
I just wanted to say thank you and happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Very kind. Thank you.
Mira,
Did you ever read Cynthia? Sarah, did you ever read Cynthia?
yes, I have a
Yes.
question. Where do you see the future of Jewish writers today in America?
Well, we do have the little children on the shoulders of the giants. So you cannot help but Shaban taking Cavalier and Clay and going to Vienna, the two men who invented Captain Marvel, the two men of Mr. America, the two Schlemiels who came to Hollywood. They were not talking about superpower supermen. They were talking about supermensch. And in Cavalier and Clay, the honesty is beautiful because Captain Marvel is here like from Malamud to fix, to be, and to save in a social way to save. Yes, Dave. Yes, Dave. So the future, Saleh, is in writers like Jonathan Safran Foer, who realized what Cynthia taught them and Philip Roth taught them. First and foremost, you have to be yourself. You have to be yourself. The Jew in you is the Jew who do. And what you do with your words and what you do with your plot is first and foremost, the American Jewish fiction got rid of the tyranny of plot. It's not anymore what comes next, what happens next, what happens next, and what happens at the end. It's not a baseball game and there's no score. It's a process of becoming. It's a process of Menschlichkeit. It's a process of struggle. It's a process of Herzog losing his wife to Valentino. It's a process of having two guns, Moshe and Aaron. Moshe shoots well, Aaron hesitates. Aaron shoots sometimes and Moses hesitates. And sure enough, the two guns don't shoot. And he doesn't shoot at the end, the man who took his wife. But that's the morality of it all, the choice. So these are the
Can I relate an anecdote? May I relate an anecdote?
Well,
Can you hear me?
please, Herschel.
So Mira and I did a book review together when we Plot Against America. We did it in someone's home, about 20 people. Mira did the literary portion and I did the historical portion, Lindbergh, etc. And we had a break for refreshments. And a woman comes over to me and she's gushing. "Oh, it must be so wonderful. Your talk, your conversations at home." I said, "Yes, it is." Mira said, "Herschel, take out the garbage." And I say, "Later." So, but I am very, very fortunate, lucky. I see how lucky I am that we can go sit down and every once in a while have a conversation, have my own Mira at my own home to talk about literature or whatever it might be. So I'm blessed. Thank you so much. This is one of your best.
Thank you.
And,
Sarah, when you tell your grandchildren that you're reading Philip Roth or Bernard Malamud or Herzog or any one of the anthologies, even the short stories of Cynthia Ozick, the pagan rabbi, the imagination of struggle with faith, struggle with God and morality, the struggle. The point is that we never lose if we hold on to the argument. So when Philip Roth is looking over at Spinoza, and we're saying to our great-grandchildren, you know that Philip Roth talks to Spinoza? Read the Sabbath book. Well, Appelfeld is gone. Agnon is gone. Bernard Malamud is gone. Philip Roth is gone. Cynthia Ozick at 92, I'm celebrating her. When I asked her to come on, she says, "Mira, I only write at night. I get on my Sears Roebuck school desk and I start writing after dinner. Could we do it in the morning?" And I said, "Well, sure." But the last time I spoke with Isaac Bashevis Singer in 1974 in Hofstra, when we invited him, he tells me he gets up at 5 and doesn't stop writing till 11 when he has a glaze of latte. and a piece of toast, and he's a vegetarian. And Cynthia was laughing, and she says, no, I'm not that boring, but I can talk at 10 o'clock. So it's very difficult. She's so private, but she, B12 energizes Jonathan Safran Foer. She energizes Nicole Krauss. When Nicole Krauss can do the history of love and bring an author that nobody knows to New York, who is looking for his son doesn't know that the father exists. He thinks everything in Barsha was burned, including the great, great opus that his father wrote. And his father is a clockmaker. And not only is he a clockmaker, but he's a blacksmith. And he also makes keys. So you know what he does every night, this Jew? He opens up Carnegie Hall in the back, and he sits on the bima, and he sings. And then he locks it up, and nobody knows he's there because he's a locksmith. Well, you understand the metaphor. You understand the music in the sentences. Stop, stop, walk, walk. You hear it, the music in the language. Every author brings the rhythm in the language. Foreign Bodies of Cynthia Ozick is all rhythm. Schubert's Eighth Symphony, unfinished. So yes, you have Nicole Krauss, you have Waldman, you have Michael Chabon, you have Jonathan Safran Foer. Jonathan Safran Foer, and what's the name of his last book? Hineni, Here I Am. An amazing piece of work. Yes, there's a new generation that only sits on the shoulders of their giants, because now the field is taken up by every immigrant, every kite runner, every Judy Picoult that borrow from the well of Holocaust, borrow from the well of Sophie's Choice, Goyim that write about Jews, and Jews that write about Goyim, and McCann who writes about epic going about Palestinian and Israel. We have such a well that for everybody like Yaakov and Rivka and Yitzchak coming to the well to drink and feed the camels. But they're not authentic. American Dirt is not written by a Mexican abused victim. So there's a lot of imagination going on, but it's not like the Jews writing about what the American Jew is like in America. His gifts, his struggles, his contribution, his experience. And that's what this literature made the century. It made it the American Jewish century of fiction. So yes, there's a new generation. Allegra Goodman. Yeah, Allegra Goodman's last book. Emuna Elon, Endless Waters in Amsterdam. Emuna Elon from Jerusalem. Beautiful. Men love it. Amsterdam. Women love it. Yes, dear. Next question. I don't hear you. Charles, are you talking? David, are you talking?
No. Whoever wants to talk, unmute yourself.
Please. Well, I'm glad I didn't put you to sleep, Marsha. Tell me about Weehawken. Tell me about New Jersey. Tell me about Elizabeth and Plot Against America. I'm sure you read it. It's like hometown.
To unmute. Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you're unmuted, dear.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm Newark, not Elizabeth.
I'm in Newark. Yes, yes.
Newark, the Newark that he knew was not the Newark that I grew up with, I'll be honest with you. He came from his background was more, what is it called? The workman's circle type of a background. And I was
Secular.
from a secular, very secular, very secular. Yeah, but
Yiddish.
specifically
Shalom
the
Aleichem.
workman-
Yeah. The Shalom
Right.
Aleichem Arbeitering.
Yeah, so I never really interacted with him personally. I was the rabbi's daughter. Nobody went near me anyway. That didn't make for a very successful high school career. But I understand him, and frankly, I'm disappointed he didn't get the Nobel Prize. I really am.
Everybody was. Yeah.
Yeah, he deserved it, and it was almost his last chance, really.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's the.
He
But it
got
was a-
every possible award from every country in the world. Japan worships him. The French give him every award. He got the prize. He got the medal. the Medal for
Well,
Achievement.
they don't say no one's a prophet in their own town, right?
Ein Navi Beiro. You're absolutely right. You're
So
absolutely
that's
right.
it.
Yeah, but he wrote about your Newark in the most loving, in the most street-like, in the most innocent voice of little Philip, the way he looks at his father, the way he listens to his mother. And he brought in every idea, you're right, of the socialist world. So Tu B'Shvat to them was not Arbor Day alone. When it came to Arbor Day and he collected the stamps, the mother said, why is it only white people? There should be black people on the stamp. Arbor Day is not just a white tree. And this is mother speaking in 1934. And Philip nods and Philip gets the idea that their family is an American family.
But he never could get away from the Jewishness of him, even though he had no religious inclination at all. He really did not. And
I give you an A, Marsha, because you're bringing up the problem. Can a great Jewish writer, like an Agnon, like an Appelfeld, here is Appelfeld from Odessa. Here's Appelfeld bringing in all the world that we didn't know. Isaac Babel, all right, the greatest story writer of the Red Cavalry, and all the viciousness of the Cossacks and the viciousness and all. So the question here is, T.S. Eliot, for instance, Ezra Pound. I'll even bring in Wagner to understand the problem. Do I hate the author or do I hate the music? So if Philip Roth and Cynthia and all are totally genius because they are taking from their own well, they're truthful to their own water, they drink and they sweeten their own soul from their background. Do I hate the author because he's not a yeshiva-born Agnon, or what happened to the Bialik? What happened to Peretz? What happened to the Yiddish theater that was so magnificent, able to take their Yiddishkeit and perform Shabbos afternoon in the Second Avenue Theater? What do I do with the dichotomy of genius, Jewish, and observant?
I can't see how you can hate the person or what he created. I think you have to just understand it in the context of what he's writing about. But I think no matter how much they try to run away from their background, it still catches up with them. I'm only saying that I personally didn't go into that crowd at all. And my father, in fact, he was very adamant about things that they used to have, like Yom Kippur parties, the whole milieu. He said it's not going to survive. And actually it didn't. The whole Yiddish thing, only the Hasidim are keeping up the Yiddish. There are some colleges that are offering Yiddish, sort of disembodied from
We
Yiddish.
call it comparative literature. So
That's
we
perfect.
take
I
Tevye.
like it.
We take Tevye and his
Right.
dialogue to God. We take Tevye and he's the moralist of the story. I'm not talking about Fiddler on the Roof. I'm talking about the real Shalom Aleichem, where Motley is not a tailor. Motley is a philosopher. He's a student. He's a yeshiva student. And he goes into the polemics. So we almost have a Spinoza here in the polemics in the 1600s. And we have Philip Roth with his polemics in the 20th century. And then we have Jacobson, who writes about Shylock. I am Shylock in England, and gets the Pulitzer Prize because he puts Shylock in the graveyard with the real Shylock of Shakespeare. And they dialogue. And they're only 500 years apart. But the point is that Jacobson wants to Judaize the biblical idea of honesty to Shylock, and of course the whole argument of what do I owe you in honest business, and demystify the Jew as the Shylock, which is really not the Jew. The Shylock is not the Jew. That's the problem. All right. So we think of the Jew in America in 1930 when they come on as a money grabber, as all the anti-Semitism, and here you come 5 voices, 10 voices, Grace Paley and the rest of them, and they actually right the wrong. I don't think anybody reading literature today, or the New York Times or Bret Stephens or the Wall Street Journal, or Sapphire or Rosenthal or anyone and believes that the Secretary of State or Henry Kissinger or anybody that I can mention from Einstein on is a money-grabbing Shylock, is a Fagin of English, of Dickens. How do you get rid of Fagin? That's what New York was like in 1930. When you saw a Jew, they knew about Oliver Twist. They knew about Fagin. How do you bring the Jew? What do you think, Moshe? I'm waiting for your comment. Rabbi Krenzel, Dr. Krenzel. Moshe, yes. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
I am unmuted.
Yes, dear.
No, you're just bringing back some history because I remember as a young man, even the 30s, everybody looked at the Jews as communists and socialists, etc. All the negativity that was brought out in those days, and I think it was brought out in literature as well. In other words, the picture that you get of the Jew in those days was not the picture that we have today of a Jew. We can't visualize the Jew the way they depicted us in literature.
How do you think the literature affected the image of the Jew over the last 80 years? Basically from 1930s and 40s, with the newspaper, with the Moment magazine, with Pat Hetzer, with all the literature that's on the table. How do you think we would have done without it?
I'm sorry, how would we have done?
How would the image of the Jew have morphed or changed or not changed if all the literature we spoke about did not come to the table like that? If between Appelfeld and Agnon and Ruth Malamud, and of course Cynthia Ozick, if that wasn't on the table now, if our kids didn't read it in college and our parents didn't live like that and the kids recorded it and the next generation now has to read it and on and on. How do you think they affected the image of the American Jew?
Unfortunately, I don't think the image that the American Jew has of Jews in general is not what we see. The Jew that we see, that we live with, does not exist on the American scene as far as the American people are concerned. They get their picture of a Jew from literature. They get it from what they read in the newspaper, whether it's in the New York Times and other people. The picture of the Jew is not what we experience ourselves. We have a completely different view of Jews that they have in literature. The literature Jew is not the ideal Jew that's presented to us, unfortunately. They see the negativity in the literature, not the positive things, whether it's Fagin or anybody else for that matter. That's the picture that most of the Jews, unfortunately, even the American Jews, don't see that.
Well, I can bring it to the media in the sense of coming to the table and imagine Spielberg, Woody Allen, and then of course you have Kramer, who did High Noon. Remember High Noon? With remember High Noon standing there all by himself and he's saying, "You're gonna shoot me?" Gary Cooper. So when Kramer comes to the Committee on American Activities, they take away the movie from him, and yet the movie gets published, and everybody understands that the Jew is standing all alone with righteousness on his side, that it is good against evil, and evil cannot win. Woody Allen, the Schlemiel on the screen, the fictional Herzog, the one who teaches the super girlfriend philosophy and makes her into a literati in the social climbing. She leaves him. But when Woody Allen finishes Annie Hall, it's a classic. Why? Everybody knows that Woody Allen is Jewish.
Yeah, but also Woody Allen didn't like being Jewish, didn't like his Jewishness, and he showed that in his films.
Often.
Yes.
I understand where the hearsay, the stereotype of a self-hating Jew was given to Shaban and given to Jonathan Safran for and given to Yellow Waldman and everybody who is free enough and intellectual enough to write and make us laugh and make us think. Make us think is always questioned. Is always under a microscope. But we have to look at it for where it shaped, and it will always shape because it will stand the test of time. High Noon will, Annie Hall will, and it's a whole other subject, but just think about it. Not just the Coen brothers or Weinstein because they're Jewish, but I'm talking about the classics and the Jewish voices. And Marsha is right. They were able to write like that because it came from their own well.
From their own experience.
Yeah. Yeah. The struggle. Ongoing struggle. Do I want to thank everybody again, Sam?
Okay, Marcia, we want to thank you for a most thought-provoking lecture. And I think if you gave everybody the list of books again, I think there'll be a run on the books in the library, because I think you created an interest in reading those books from everybody that was on. So again, we thank you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
I wish
Wonderful
her
presentation.
birthday.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Happy birthday.
ממוריי למדתי, מתלמידיי השכלתי. I want to keep on sharing. I want the conversation to at the pool or in shul, or the shul in the pool, or the pool in the shul, to be one of interest that comes from reading. And obviously, every time you look at a parsha and you look at the literature that I mentioned, wow, it's there. It's all there. If you hear the music, if you hear the reductionism of language to say pristinely what you mean and mean what you say. So it's not for commercial reasons. It's not for somebody says, what do you read? It's for escape, but most important for entertainment. But it's for entertainment that educates. So again, you all get an A, and I thank you so much for sharing. Be well. Be
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday again.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night. Happy birthday.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday. Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday, right?
Ruby Shvat Sameach. Thank you.
Take
Bye,
care.
honey.
What's
I
that?
would like to
Bye,
thank
Sally. Thank you.
and if I may,
Happy
I'd like to
birthday.
remind
Thank you.
2 weeks from, am I speaking? 2
Yeah.
weeks from the last Monday, on February 8th, we have another exciting lecturer. You know, Mari Levine is going to be speaking on the book Extracted. It's a very fascinating book by Perry Brickman. I recommend that you all tune in. Mari Levine likes to speak in person and on Zoom. So those of you who would like to come to shul, Marty will speak in person, and it will also be available on Zoom. So good night, everyone. Thank you so much again. Be well.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
darling. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Tamar. Bye, honey. Bye, Pauline. I didn't get a chance to say hello.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Pauline.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sweetheart. Love you. Bye, Tamar. Tamar is on. Tamar is gone. Thank
Yep, no, we're here. Happy birthday. Thank you.
you. You're welcome.
Oh, my mother's with me too. We're both here. We were both here together.
Okay.
Sameach.
Dolador. I love that. I love that. Dolador. I love it. Thank you. Tamar,
Thank you.
Tamar, did you get a chance to ever read the Bello?
No,
Or Cynthia?
Not yet. But
No,
not yet.
not yet.
I have to rethink all of this.
I want to know, Agnon was walking on Karen Ayasod, and Martin Buber was coming across, and Agnon is coming from shul right there. And he meets Martin Buber, and he says, Motke, I'm waiting for you. When are you going to show up for Minyan? I know you probably the late feeling yichud, you daven at home, but really, I want to know when you're going to join my minyan. And he was only 91, Buba. And he looked at him and he said, not yet.
Oh, that's such a great one. That's a really good story.
When are you going to do that? And here Martin Buber published I and Thou, and he published the Hasidim story and dissertation on what Judaism taught Mohammedism. And all of this was all published. And they're all waiting for him. When are you going to join the minyan? I didn't want to mention that, but Marshall said, we didn't touch those Jews. You know, we like didn't get. Well, Martin Buber did very well in Berlin. When everybody left, he went to Israel. And there Agnon was there. But he and Agnon did the same thing in two separate abodes. Same mind, same soul, two different worlds. So we really don't question, you know, where you daven yichud. The question is, what do you do with what you know? So I think even Heschel's Man's Search for God, you know, even that Martin Buber age and all that generation. So I know you have to read that, but if you get to a Bello or Cynthia Scholl, I think literature will speak.
I didn't read that one, but where is Jonathan Foyer from? I don't remember that.
Brooklyn. He was married to Nicole Krauss for 18 years. They have 3 boys, and they got divorced. And Nicole Krauss, they moved up to the Upper West Side, and he put his townhouse in Brooklyn for $4.5 million.
That's all.
And I know that 12 years before, when they got married and they redid the male kitchen and the wolf oven and all the details of the bathrooms and the boys' rooms, because one boy is like into universe on computer and the other boy is into is total philosopher. Everything is what, why, what, why, vocabulary. The one is Nicole, one is, you know, a kind of father. Anyway, they got divorced, and he put the house on the market. So I know he bought it for $600,000 and he sold it for $4.5 million. So I guess the first book, incredibly close, and on 9/11, probably got him a couple of million. And then he wrote the next one, which is also unbelievable. Everything that he wrote, and Here I Am, the last one, in Amy, Here I Am. And she writes Forrest Dark, Ayecha. She starts the chapter with Ayecha, and he calls his book, Here I Am. You get it? Ayecha, here I am, divorced, 2 different modes, 2 different authors, 2 different books.
If you hadn't said that, I would never have known that.
But you can't connect the dots unless they're all sleeping with you. So Nicole is on your right and Buber is on my left. And if people ask me, who do you sleep with tonight? I could say both of them, but they're divorced. You know, but they don't sleep together.
I won't tell Herschel.
So that's, yeah, thank you for staying up. Thank you so much.
No. So again, may have Esrim in good health. We should be able next year again to celebrate together instead of up and down.
That's it. Yom Chag. Take care, sweetheart. Laila too.